All right. Hi, everyone. So we are joined by Steve and Sid. I think we'll get started just in the interest of time. So first off, welcome to Get Ready webinars, and thank you to everyone who has joined today. I know that these are tough times, and so just thank you for making the time to attend. Very glad to have you for this session. So I want to start by saying that we all know that these are really difficult times for both individuals as well as businesses. So I really hope that you and your family, your loved ones, are staying safe and healthy in these times. And before we get started, just a few housekeeping rules. In all the lines will be muted through the webinar. If you do have any questions, feel free to raise it in the Q&A section, and we'll get to those questions at the end. And in case you do get dropped off, just feel you can get back onto the webinar through the same link that was sent over to you. We are recording this session, and if you're interested in the recording, I will be sharing the same in a few days. So today's session is on driving back revenue and customers during the coronavirus crisis that we're all facing. I'm Rebecca George, and I'll be your host for this session today. We're going to be joined by speakers Sid Gopishetty and Steve Lee. Sid is the Regional General Manager of Marketing and Customer Engagement for Toys R Us Asia. Sid comes in with 12 years of experience in developing impactful and customer relevant marketing campaigns for the consumer goods, retail, and technology industries across Asia, EMEA, and North America. Sid has graduated from National University of Singapore and has expertise in competencies like marketing strategy and campaign development. Our other speaker is Steve Lee, who is the Vice President of Sales for the China region here at Capillary Technologies. Steve comes in with almost 20 years of experience in business development, strategy, and profit and loss management. He has a master's degree in engineering and applied science from Columbia University in New York City. So with that, welcome Steve, welcome Sid. Really glad to have both of you here with us today. Just want to do a quick check. All our mics just unmuting. Can you just make sure that we can hear you?
Hi, hello everyone. Good afternoon.
Yep.
Hello everyone, good afternoon.
So for those of you who aren't very familiar, just want to give you a quick overview of who Capillary is. We are a consumer engagement and commerce SaaS-based product company and have been in the market for over 10 years now. So far, we've worked with over 300 million customers on our platform and consumers on our platform, and have worked with brands, global brands from McDonald's to Walmart to GlaxoSmithKline, and even luxury brands like Calvin Klein and Swarovski. So just to take you through the agenda for today, we are going to be covering the impact that COVID-19 has had on various industries and the predicted recovery period that we're expecting. Challenges that all businesses are going to be seeing during these times, and what the leaders or the winners of the new world would look like. And then most importantly, we'll be focusing on the kind of solutions that businesses can adopt essentially to get their customers back and to cut costs in these extremely difficult times where there just isn't too much of a cash inflow happening. And finally, we'll be going forward to the questions. So with that, I actually I want to pass this on, open it up with Steve, who is currently based in China and can help us understand from his experience what are businesses really seeing in terms of an impact, and in various regions. Steve, over to you.
Thank you, Rebecca. Hi everyone. It's glad to talk with everyone, with you all. First, I hope everyone stay healthy. I know it's a difficult time. It's very challenging, but I think it's good we all organize, gather here, and to hear. I want to probably share some the last couple months of the stories, what's happening in China, and what actions or measures some Chinese F&B and retail stores are taking. Try to, I think, a different ways, try to help their customer, help their employees. Fundamentally, is try to bring back the business. First, everyone knows it starts in China. And it's actually, from another report, it starts end of last year. And what really happens, I think, from the lockdown on January 22nd, right before the Chinese New Year in Wuhan, and the business from all the store it quickly, I think, from the next 1 or 2 days, all the city stores are being locked down by the government quickly. You know, in China, they can do that very fast. And that's right before the Chinese New Year. So you can see from the comparison from the early this year, and compared to the last year, significant drops, both in the cash flow for the stores and also for the customer foot traffic. Until everyone probably see possibly recovery in the early May, is actually mid of May until now, probably in April, and most cities start back to the business. The last city were being opened up, lifted, is Wuhan, which is started first, April 8th. They start open the Wuhan city, means traffic, airplane, train, and allow the store to open. But the office building is still, in some ways, they don't allow all the people to go back to the office building. Business people are taking different shifts. They try to have not just the social distance, but also the space distance when you're sitting in the office building. So this significantly, as everyone can see from the tracking for the last, almost 2.5 months, significantly affect all the different stores, especially the offline stores. The next one, Rebecca. And also, I think we Capillary also help, in the Southeast Asia, Middle East, the Indian customer. And from our data, we look at Singapore. A very interesting, I think the first case reported in January 23rd. It's right before also the Chinese New Year. Singapore, some people, they celebrate the Chinese New Year too. So their customer, interestingly, if you see the second part of graph, they still come to visit the store. We guess they didn't take very serious lockdown during the February and early March. But the business, compared with the last year, the store's business drops significantly. I think in Singapore, also most people, they want to go to the shopping malls, the stores, because of the temperature, air conditioning. But even I think the April in Singapore, they take a further serious lockdown steps, try to quarantine as much as possible. So even let's see, the traffic still probably similar compared with last year, but business drops, especially in March, drops quite a lot. So it means the customer are not spending. That's also, I think, a common challenge facing everywhere now. Next one. And also, I think Middle East is very similar to Singapore, and also they started the first case in January 22nd. And also March 2nd, very late in Saudi Arabia and UAE, the first one, but in Saudi Arabia, it reported in the March 2nd. And also it increased very fast. March 20th, they already have over 344 cases. So starting in the mid of March, late mid-March, we can see the store sales drops very significantly. And also started from March 22nd, 15, around that, and the customers visiting per store drops to almost 0. So that's, I think, it take a little latency, about the 1.5 months, the impact the coronavirus spread to Southeast Asia, Middle East, UAE. And everyone knows now it's a worldwide situation, unfortunately. Next one. I want to share with everyone, and this is from China government statistics on the business, especially on retail part. January, February traditionally is the hot holiday season for China market, but compare with the same time last year, it drops. The retail sales drops almost 21%, 20.5%. They spend still 745 billion US dollar. I converted it to the US dollar for people to have a better thinking and a view on the currency. Equally, I think that this various lockdown impact the cities and the countryside. Both countryside and city, they have very similar decreasing on the retail business. And also on the online and the offline, we have seen even China is going very fast online, but online still takes only about 22% of the total retail business. Still lots of offline business. Among all the impact, I think the worst case is F&B and the restaurant. It drops over 40%. Oh, Rebecca, can you move? Okay. And also, I think everyone knows, because since January, people are going less to the outside to eat and stays home. And also restaurants are being forced to shut down, close down. And that's caused of a lot of, and also you think about, later we'll talk about the logistics situation, especially on the fresh food. So restaurant business drops significantly. I think a part of the business being operated is still retail on online part. We'll share some experience of some retailer helping the offline to the online. In the chart shows just from last 12 months. Last year, every month China retail business grows above 7%. But first 2 months, it drops at 20 retail, especially retail part, drops at 20.5%. Just I think this week, the report in Q1, China GDP drops at 6.5%. It's no question about this significant impact on all the different perspective for the business. All right, next one, Rebecca. Thank you. So we're focusing more on the F&B and the retail, and I think as we can see from last couple of store visits, from also government statistical report, those are two very hardest hit industry in China. First of thing, I think during all this COVID-19 coronavirus, and all the stores and different brands, company, first they have to think about the employee health and the safety. They work with the government, with all the different health bureaus to report employees' safety, to track down their health and their whereabouts, because this is also a holiday season for Chinese. And they're almost close to, I think, 700 million people are supposedly moving around, traveling back to the home. And also this lockdown significantly impact the supply chain management, because lots of highway being shut down, airplane being very limited on traveling. And also there's short of a labor shortage. It's not just on impact the logistics, but also lots of people are moving back and forth from countryside, working in the city. They're being stopped, they're being locked down. So the business in a different city is very hard to get back, to resume back. I think that the most significant on the retail part is the cash flow. And I think that you can see the data in China, most of the stores, some of the stores, they drops due to zero cash flow. People not going to the store and they're not buying from the store. But since March, we have seen some measures we'll share they're taking to help some of the offline retails. And also, I think on the pricing part, people are not spending too much on non-essential goods, and they're only buying some food, groceries, and so this really impact how the different retails to give, even they give us a lot of discount promotion, but people are not buying quite much. This is also, you can see from during this difficult time, the consumer demand is really just related with essential foods. But so no matter what, I think a retail business, F&B, they have to find smart ways to help the customer, to bring back the customer. Next one. Yeah, so right before this epidemic situation, the lockdown, quarantine on most of the people, so they cannot go out. I think also lasted 2 or 3 years. Some people you may know in China, they created a new retail. Basically, they moved a lot of retail to the e-commerce website. They started already, they built some, I think, a good logistic and also payment and also different traffic. And so during this lockdown and every retail F&B, I think they all have to think about how their employees are working and will be working, how their customers and how their cash flow. Those things I think are very important for every retail. And for some company, I think they were still focusing maybe help them to expedite the digital transformation. I think I can say probably all retail, they have to think about how do they build their e-commerce, web commerce, and brand.com website to not just move away from the offline retail, but think about another efficient ways. And when you get the traffic, the customer information registration from the different channels, you have to think about how you get your customer data platform set up, how you build a multi-channel CRM. In terms of multi-channel sales, I think in China, they traditionally rely on main 5 e-commerce websites like a Tmall owned by Alibaba, a JD.com, and Pinduoduo and VIP Shop and others. And this, but besides, I think they pushed forward from another channel on social selling. Means people can start to share their information, stores information, merchandise information, discount promotion from a WeChat. That's similar to WhatsApp, and a Weibo, similar to Facebook and also with the Twitter. And I think this one is very interesting. I think this COVID-19 situation really pushed forward a lot of innovative, creative ways. Now, what's most popular in China is live streaming selling. I was trying to explain some of the concept, it's similar to the TV shopping network, but it happens on mobile platform. You can just see the live streaming anywhere, and easily you can click a couple links to place the order. Interestingly, yesterday in China, President Xi Jinping also started to help the retailer to sell some food on the live streaming. And also Prime Minister started on another live streaming channel. So all the government officials participating to help the retail to sell. And talking about how the offline retail try to convert it to the online. I think traditionally they have built some very good staff app, store app to help the employees to attract the customer registration, help the customer identify their ordering histories and showing the different product and merchandise. But nowadays, I think during the January and the February lockdown, the retail are thinking and are taking effective measures to push every employee which used to work in the offline retail to start to sell online. So this is truly O2O selling online. Basically, every employee will be enabled with the mobile app to push either doing the live streaming or share in their social networks, either can help with their store merchandise warehouse. So everyone becoming a salesperson, help the retail to sell. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much for that, Steve. That was really interesting information. And I mean, you know, just as you've said that people are in China, they're looking at different ways of getting customers back. You know, even in places where that are on the road to recovery, according to the National Retail Federation, they're seeing key consumer behavior changes. So that's like half of the people who normally purchase things at stores are now ordering these same products online. And even in areas, you know, which are on the road to recovery, nearly 6 in 10 customers are still worried about going to the store because they're affected of a fear of being infected. So this really brings us to the question of, like, these trends make us wonder, will the coronavirus be like the tipping point for e-commerce adoption? So with that being said, I just want to open up the discussion to Sid. Sid, as I mentioned, is the regional general manager of Toys R Us Asia and currently based in Hong Kong. Sid, can you share your experiences in terms of the impact of COVID-19 and how businesses can just get on the road to recovery?
Yeah, hi Vanessa, and hi everyone. Firstly, thanks to everyone for joining. Just a little background about Toys R Us Asia. If you're not familiar with the brand already, we're one of the largest, if not the largest, toy retailer globally, specialty toy retailer globally. In Asia specifically, we operate across 10 markets. Japan is our largest market, China second largest, and then other regions in Greater China and Southeast Asia region. And we're headquartered here in Hong Kong. So with this COVID-19 situation, and like any other retailer, it's definitely hit us hard. It's hit us hard with parents having to stay at home, with schools closed and kids having to stay at home. And of course, last but not least, with governments shutting down the entire country totally. So for us as a business, we've sort of gone through waves, and I'll take you through some of those learnings. Wave one was in January and February through peak Chinese New Year time, when our China market was closed, but every other market was open. Now, as we come closer to April, May period, we have China market, which is open and on the road to recovery, but Southeast Asia is completely closed. Japan is sort of half closed, half open, with customers still quite wary to go out. So what we experienced in China, number one, is you have to be quick to react. In most cases we were, in some cases we weren't, but we've definitely learned from our experience in China and are putting all of this into practice in Southeast Asia and Japan. So as Steve mentioned, I guess in retail, the number one thing every retailer is looking at right now is cash flow. At the peak of Chinese New Year, we have 215 stores in China. We had 0 stores open. All 215 stores closed. Our e-commerce closed. So obviously with that, we have 0 cash flow coming into the business, right? Fortunately enough, we didn't have to make drastic changes. There were some desperate rent negotiations which happened with landlords, some landlords more supportive with others. We had to relook each of our marketing plans and marketing budgets to see what non-essentials could be saved. And let's look at it also from, if no stores are open, then what marketing really are we going to do, apart from the bare minimum to keep the brand awareness still top of mind. Last but not least, human resource allocations play a big role. As you can imagine, with over 200 stores in one country, and in the peak Chinese New Year time, there's a lot of part-time staff that comes in as well. So we've had to re-roster that staff, deploy them into other areas, and make maximum efficiency from a human resource point of view. A lot of other retailers around the world globally have had to either reduce their workforce or go through other arrangements such as pay cuts, furloughs, so on and so forth. Fortunately, and touch wood, for Toys R Us Asia, we've still not had to go down that path. Inventory management. I think this is the single most important part where we managed to tackle this COVID-19 situation. Now, Chinese New Year is a peak period for us, and this was back in Jan-Feb. So there's a huge amount of inventory that we ordered in to support this peak period. What happened was all this inventory hit our stores, hit our warehouses, hit our distribution centers, and then all the stores closed down. So what we've had to do is two things. We've had to go through very hard negotiations with our vendors to defer those stocks. So they take it back. We defer it to the next peak season, and who knows in today's world when that next season is going to be. And we've had to really keep our warehouses and distribution centers as lean as possible from a stock perspective. Fortunately, most of our vendors have been cooperative. When I say vendors, these are the brands that we work with, like Lego or Hasbro or Mattel or any of the other big brands. Secondly, no new purchase orders being placed. So, of course, we've gone into a stock oversupply, and to cut back on this, with all the movies being postponed, with all new product launches being postponed, we're not in a position to order any new product coming in. And last but not least, we use this as a great opportunity when stores start to open up to start clearing out all the aged inventory that we have. Steve mentioned heavy markdowns that most retailers are practicing. We followed the similar route and it has worked. These clearance campaign, how we position it is we're making room for new toys which are coming in, which is sort of still putting in the message that we're not closing down. It's still a positive thing, it's still a positive marketing spin where all we're doing is we're making room for new toys to come in and hence clearing out all the aged stuff at throwaway prices. From a marketing perspective, all our seasonal promotions, so our calendar has been sort of flipped upside down. We've had to rethink all the promotions that we're running, and all ATL media buys that we've put in place have all been postponed. We had some big sports partnerships. All of them have been canceled now. Not canceled, but deferred to when economies and markets still open up. So having said that, the 5 to 10% marketing that we did do was focused primarily on pushing our brand and focused primarily on providing solutions for kids and families on things to do when they stay at home. So simple stuff like, arts and crafts, food recipes, simple videos, things like that, which is still very relevant to our target audience and keeps parents and kids engaged while they're staying at home. E-commerce has played a huge role in our markets. So in the markets that are still open to trade, customers don't want to get out of the house. And so we've seen between 200% to 1,000% uptake in our e-commerce performance since last year. In some markets, we've even had e-commerce performance be on par with our flagship stores in those markets. Now, I know that everyone talks a lot about e-commerce and it's really important, but just take a moment to think of this from a toys perspective. When purchasing toys, our main goal is to bring the kids and bring families into our offline stores to deliver that experience. I mean, think of yourself as a child, and when you went into a toy shop as a child, you want to pick up that toy and play with it and feel it and stuff like that. So this experience in store is key priority for us. And for us to have shift that to e-commerce has been challenging. It has worked. And we've seen some very significant gains in our e-commerce space. So much so, in the next week or so, you'll see completely new refreshed e-commerce websites with a lot more functionality in some of our Southeast Asia markets. Product mix. So, like I said, there's two things we need to focus on here. As a business in the toy space, you're primarily driven by what the movie calendar for that year looks like. So when you have movies like Avengers and Iron Man and Frozen and Minions and all this stuff coming out, you have the toys that come with this. This year's been funny, no movies, so no new toys. So what we've had to do is two things. One is focus on our private label products, where we know that we're the only ones who sell these products, push these hard. Secondly is we quickly worked with our vendors like Disney's and Hasbro's and stuff like that to look at what are kids or what are families buying these days. They're focused on masks, on hand sanitizers. So we got into licensed products on this. So for example, Frozen themed hand sanitizers, Iron Man themed masks for children, which is still very relevant to these times. We put these up for pre-orders and for sale on our e-commerce site, and they pretty much sold out as soon as it went on. And it's the only thing kids can buy these days, and it's the only thing that's really relevant to what's happening in the market. Last but not least is we did some very active promotional bundles on what we call play-at-home kits or indoor play kits, which is focused on things like board games, focused on things like arts and crafts, on things like puzzles, which kids and families can play together with their family when they're at home, indoors. In some markets where you have a little more space, like Malaysia and Thailand, compared to, let's say, a Hong Kong or a Japan, where space is really a constraint, we focus more on outdoor toys, things like small goal posts and basketball rings, which you can still set up inside. And what kids would normally play outside, we're trying to bring that indoors. Last but not least, from just a hygiene perspective, and I think this is very, very important in retail today because customers need to feel comfortable coming into the store. This was something that we implemented almost immediately. In this region, in the Asia Pacific region, China, Japan, so forth, we had SARS in 2003, which was sort of like a preparation to all these markets who had faced this sort of a situation, and they knew exactly what to do once something kicked in. So almost as early as the beginning of Jan, when the first cases were being reported in China, most of our stores went into routine temperature checks, all our staff wearing masks. The products were hand sanitized. We gave exclusive store timings. We'd either open earlier or stay open later for pregnant mums who wanted to come because they don't want crowded spaces. And last but not least, and I speak about this store experience, almost all our stores have actual demo products that you can go in and play with. And this is extremely important for a child. When they go in, they want to pick up the toy and play with it. But unfortunately, what we've had to do is we've had to remove all of this because we don't want children still coming in, and for the absolute worst case scenario, them contracting any sort of virus or hygiene from these demo toys that we put up. So we'd had to remove those toys. And like I said, these hygienic things went into effect almost immediately. Next slide, please. Yeah. Some of the learnings that we encountered in China is we've got a loyalty base across the region of about 20 million members, which is very sizable. And in some countries, they make up to 70 to 75% of our sales. So we're talking $1 billion to $1.5 billion of sales just from our members. We focused on communication to these members very regularly, as customized and as personalized as possible. Not really with, discounted messages or sales messages, but more on the lines of branded content and what they can do at home while they spend their time with their families. And I'll go at this circle anti-clockwise. New, leaner processes. So I think when most of the markets shut down, right, it gave us a great opportunity to put, as a business, to put these BCP processes in place, digital transformation processes in place, marketing, supply chain, logistics, all processes that, and I think it's a great opportunity for other companies as well, when you have that downtime to focus on otherwise stuff that just you don't have the time to focus on. And we've been able to address some low-hanging fruits and have some very quick wins in this space. All of our marketing has had to shift online. So no more outdoor signage, no more ATL, TV ads, none of that stuff. Everything driven online to support our e-commerce business. And I mentioned a new e-commerce website launching in Southeast Asia, and new mobile well, not new, but upgraded mobile applications launching across the region, all to support this online component. Because even with recovery coming in, we don't anticipate store traffic to pick up that much. We anticipate a huge uptake in our online footprint, but not so much in store. Seamless O2O experience. I won't spend too much time on this because while we do strive to provide this, Steve has already covered a lot in what China is doing and how they're leading the way in this space. Data and the product bundles that we've seen, this was extremely important. So when we look at purchase trends, and we were looking at, in a normal scenario, what people buy and what we would buy, what they would do after. And here's where we're using a lot of Capillary's services as well in combining the loyalty component and this data component together, and how we can automate that entire process. So if we know already that these product bundles have been sold to customers, rather than have them come to stores to pick up their next purchase, we know what they're going to buy and promote those products to them while they stay at home. And last but not least, the focus on private label. So what we've had to do now is relook our entire private label portfolio and upweight that, because with no hot products coming in and with no newness really coming into the toy market, we need to provide that from our private label perspective. I suspect most retailers would be doing this in their product mix as well, because with just literal halts coming to supply chains across, there's very little newness that's going to be coming into the market across industries and across categories. So really looking at what your exclusive portfolio of products is, or your, let's say, private labels or direct import portfolios are, that's really where you'd have to attract customers coming into stores once the recovery kicks in. So that's just a quick high-level summary of where we were as our markets were closed, where we are on the transition as they open, and now as China, we have zero stores closed now. All stores are back to trading. Week on week, we're seeing at least 5% to 10% increase in both sales and traffic from what was the worst hit time due to COVID-19. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. It will come slowly, perhaps less slowly than the SARS recovery or some of the other viruses, but definitely positive signs ahead, hopefully towards Q3 and Q4. And for the toy business sake, I hope everything clears out by Christmas time, because that's really when children want all their Christmas gifts, and a bulk of our purchases come in as well. Thank you. If there's any questions? Yeah, I think we have.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's just wonderful to hear. About how Toys R Us is just keeping the safety of the kids as priority. It was one of my favorite stores. I grew up in the Middle East, and it was always one of the best stores, the most magical stores to hit in any mall. So a question that many of us have is, who is going to be the leaders and the winners after this shift we're seeing in consumer behavior? And I think we've already heard some answers from Steve and Sid, which is in line with what research from Gartner, Harvard Business Review, and Forrester says, which is that it essentially comes down to those who are quickest to adapt, those who offer innovative shopping experiences, those that are consistently analyzing new behaviors, and omni-channel commerce players. So before we get to questions, and we are going to take up questions immediately after this, I just want to ask Steve, as the Vice President of Sales at Capillary, can you just give us a quick walkthrough on how Capillary and its solutions are positioned at this time to maybe help businesses, for going forward? Oh, you're on mute, Steve.
Hi, thanks, Sid, for sharing great experience from Toys R Us. I think Toys R Us is doing great, especially we can see Toys R Us in China market is opening the stores, and they are pushing a lot of marketing campaigns, and people are flowing back. And hopefully, I think all the retail business, as Sid mentioned, we're looking for the Q3, Q4, really the coming up next 2 quarters holiday season. In terms of Capillary capabilities, I think we have been in the market over 10 years, help a lot of a retail business. We started not just in the offline stores to help them to get the POS information, engage with the customer, but we're moving also into the different e-commerce interface integration with a different e-commerce website, building on this the eCRM, as you see from the link to Lazada, Tmall, Amazon, and JD. I think that's truly helped a lot of a retailer to multi-channels CRM, and they can get a better view of their customers, and they can also help their customers in terms of loyalty, in terms of repeating sales. And also, I think Capillary are taking steps on the social CRM. We call it linking with the WhatsApp, WeChat, Facebook, because that's another great channel so how we can help the retailers. From this lockdown COVID-19 situation, and I think every company, every retail FB business, they have to think about seriously, how they balance the online and offline. In that way, I think Capillary is responding quickly to help lots of our new customers with the web commerce smart stores. That's truly to connect, linked from the online to offline, offline to online, 2 ways. So hopefully, we can work with all the retail FB to going through all this difficult time and eventually help our customers. Back to you, Rebecca.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you for that overview. So now just to get to some of the questions that we're seeing, one of the questions is, what is the change in ROAS on e-commerce sale? Would you want to take that up, Steve? Is that does that question make sense to you?
Okay, let me take that.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so we're definitely seeing, I can't give you what the change in number is, but what I can tell you is the effectiveness of our advertising right now is definitely higher when it comes to e-commerce spend. But I would not say there's a change. This is because there's a change in what marketing message that we're putting out. So it's a hard comparison to make. But this is primarily because people just aren't going to stores. I can give them a 10% discount on online and a 20% discount in store, but people would still prefer to buy online because they're still very reluctant to go to that store and purchase. So across e-commerce, what we're seeing is higher traffic coming through, higher conversion rates, and as a result of which, higher overall sales itself. That traffic is being driven a lot by our online marketing efforts. So let's say our ROI on our online marketing or on marketing in general is definitely higher on e-commerce. But I'd say that's primarily driven because of the either store closures or the wariness of customers to going into stores.
Okay.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I think that seemed to answer the question. We have another question. Again, this is addressed to Sid. So I believe you have two customer segments in your purchase journey: kids and their parents. What approach strategy does your team develop for upgraded e-com sites to get the attention of kids?
Yeah.
So that's.
Yeah, no, good question. So a couple of things, right? Now, legally, firstly, we're not allowed to sell to kids. We're not allowed to market to kids, and we're not allowed to sell to kids, right? So the e-commerce site, which becomes, let's say, the online face of the business, is very much targeted towards what parents want, but it's communicated in a child-friendly manner. Number one. Number two is within the e-commerce site, we're building TBC, and I can't disclose, so let's just call it a fun zone for now. And within that is where you have everything that the kids want. So any kids directed marketing, which is completely COPA. COPA is the governing body to, or rather the regulatory body that clears advertising for kids. So any advertising that's cleared for kids through YouTube or other channels goes into that fun zone section on our website, which could have activity sheets, trivia, quizzes, how to play with toys, episodes from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Spider-Man or whatever that is. And that's really where we draw the line between how we market to parents and kids. The core message that's being marketed across is very much directed to the parents. The way that it's communicated is very much, or the tone of voice in which it's communicated is very much directed to kids. A lot of the content that we develop, the brand related, product related, new launch content is all kids. So unboxing videos, we use talents, language, all very child friendly. All of that is communicated to kids. And I guess the parents are just looking at, once the kids are pestering them, where's the cheapest place that I can buy this toy? And that's where the promotional, the pricing or the promotional mechanics kick in.
So Thanks for that, Sid. We have a question from Chetan. Are we seeing changes to the store assortment in terms of number of SKUs being carried and the long tail product variants? So that, again, to repeat that, are we seeing changes to the store assortments in terms of the number of SKUs being carried and the long-term variants of that?
Yes. So is that to me, or?
I think you would be more suited to answer that.
Okay. In terms of number of SKUs, yes, there is definitely a reduction in the number of SKUs coming in, primarily because of the lack of newness coming in. So if I have 100 products, a good percentage of that would be new products coming in. So with that sort of inflow being stopped, or those shipments that have stopped coming in, I need to fill those 30 SKUs with just an increase in my existing portfolio, or in my increasing number of amongst the brands that I'm carrying already, and just increase the number of products within each, or the shelf space given to each of them. In terms of long tail, well, we have our evergreens, and those will always be our core. I'll speak specifically to our private label brands, because I know these much better than, because these are less cyclical and less seasonal compared to some of the newer brands. We have our core assortments there. Let's say top 3 heroes on each of the brands that we push and push hard. The ones and twos that we see that are not, that sort of make up a bulk of that long tail, which are the ones and twos, that's where we spoke of the clearance stuff that we're doing, where we're really actively pushing hard, and in some cases just giving those products away for free to try and shorten that what we call ones and twos as much as possible.
Okay. I think we just have time for one last question. There's a few questions around the e-commerce marketplaces, like Amazon and different sites. Now, so the question is, would the evolution of new distribution channels, instead of the focus on virtual distribution, e-commerce marketplaces, be more viable? I think, Steve, you did cover a bit of this, but essentially marketplaces versus new distribution channels, and I think we can even consider like an own brand site in that mix.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most best way to go forward?
Sure. I think it's very valid and good statement. I think when the company started with its own direct website, and nowadays the traffic, most of the e-commerce traffic goes through the different e-commerce marketplace. Like I know in Southeast Asia, like Lazada, Shopee, Amazon. In China, like Tmall, JD, PDD. I think all these why these different e-commerce marketplaces is getting better, because they provide much easier for registration and provide the different access from a mobile, from a different platform. And also they provide a very good tracking. They work behind with the different logistic vendors on the shipping. You can see, your shipping and handle with the returns and the customer service. I think that's definitely on top of the brand.com, its own website, that's becoming the mainstream e-commerce marketplace. Interestingly, I think this question is related. On top of it, nowadays e-commerce owns a lot of brands, not just the larger brands, but also different, long tail product brands. But also those retailers, not just a larger one, they're thinking about how to attract customers to those e-commerce websites. So e-commerce website, I know at least in China, like in Tmall, in JD, like TikTok, they're providing the live show streaming, attract the customer to come to e-commerce website. So you can think about on top of e-commerce website, there is another distribution channel on the live streaming, which is becoming a very interesting business model, how that attract the different customers. Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, that I think that addressed that question well. So, you know, I don't think we have any more time for questions, but I just want to summarize with a few points that we spoke about today. When it comes to the recovery of bringing customers back, we're looking at customer safety in-house, social distancing measures, greater self-servicing, ensuring that you know, we have emotional engagement and showing that you care about your customers, online to offline platforms and omni-channel commerce. That's extremely important, as both Sid and Steve said, and relevant communication with customers. And in terms of optimizing costs, we're looking at using intelligently using CRM and marketing automation to capitalize better on your existing customer database, greater self-servicing options and increasing the automation, using physical stores as fulfillment centers, and improving communication through your own app and brand.com. So that was just a summary of what we heard and learned today. I'm really glad for everyone who's joined us today. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you so much, Sid. I hope everyone who's listening found this session helpful. So thank you everyone for joining. I will be sharing the recorded session over emails. So if you're interested, if you like, I'll share it on social media as well as on your email IDs.
Hey, yeah, okay, thanks. Thanks everyone. Rebecca, can we just get on a quick call after this? Yeah.
Sure.
Okay,
Thank you,
cool.
Sid. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks everyone for joining. Any questions, just feel free to mail me or get in touch on LinkedIn. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.